Ryan Poles speaks about the Chicago Bears already laying down the foundation for Caleb Williams' contract extension. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The Chicago Bears make another pre-draft visit. Plus, we have ESPN and their prediction on the two most likely players that the Chicago Bears will draft in the first round. We're talking about all that, plus an update to the compensatory pick situation. All that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Eric Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central or every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get to this content for today, y'all. And we got a number of things to get into with the NFL draft. But we're going to start off talking about Ryan Poles' comments in regards to Caleb Williams' contract extension, which they already seem to be planning with. And he used a great traffic light analogy that I actually like that Ryan Poles used here, which I think is very smart. But let's get into the quote first. We'll talk about what it means. We'll talk about how that sets the groundwork and how it kind of explains why the Chicago Bears have gone about this offseason the way that they've had. Ryan Poles was asked in regards to the contract extension with Caleb Williams, and he said this directly. Not just Bears history, but football history. There's been some unbelievable teams that can't get the quarterback right, and it doesn't lead to much. There are times where the quarterback's right, and it usually bears the fruit that you're looking for and the results in becoming a contender and a championship caliber team. We're making progress. That's exciting. To even be thinking about planning for that. It's exciting, but there is a challenge after that too. It's good to almost feel like you've got it. It's good to go with the traffic light. It went from red as a rookie to yellow. You can creep forward a little bit and start having some of these conversations to anticipate it, but we need him to give us a green light. I think we'll find out this year about his progress. So this is Ryan Poles basically not only saying, yeah, we're ready for it and we're prepared for it, and there have been some signs of exactly what we want to see, but it's not a green light yet. Now, I know there are going to be some more knee-jerky fans and listeners that take this and like, what does that mean? They're not as sure on Caleb Williams. The Bajan baddies are waiting to take this one and be like, oh, see, there it goes. But I think overall it comes down to this, is that, it's not the green light on if he's going to get an extension. It's the green light on how much that extension is going to be. How much are those negotiations going to need to start at, which the Bears probably already have an idea based off Caleb Williams and everything else of what he wants to look at in that time period. But, it's just clear that Ryan Poles is hoping that year 3 cements Caleb Williams and the fact that there is no other questions about this extension that's going to come one way or another. They're going to give Caleb Williams an extension. And so there's not an if on that. It's more so about like where his progress leads to eliminating some questions that's going to be around the size of the extension is the way that I personally take that. And, Caleb Williams did have growth last year. One thing, the area that he needs to grow in for sure is the completion percentage. There's just no doubt about that. But you look at Caleb Williams at 3,942 yards, 7th in the NFL, 6th in touchdown passes at 27, and only 7 interceptions, right? The QBR, something that you want to get up. He had a QB rating of 90 last year, which was up from 87.8. And don't get me talking about QBR, which is only ESPN stat. We're talking about actual football stats here that everybody tracks, right? So he even took a step up in that. But the completion percentage went down from 62% as a rookie to 58% in his second year. You want to see that tighten up, but everything else was better. More touchdowns, in that, more yards that came down to that. More attempts, which led to one more interception than what he had as a rookie as well. Way less sacks, which is smart, not only because of the offensive line, but also this is better awareness of how and where to use his legs. So, it's all on Caleb. And, that's why the Bears, and I said, at the beginning of this, that it kind of explains why the Bears went about this offseason the way that they did. You weren't going to add a big $20 million or plus contract when you got to extend your quarterback. You may have to extend your right tackle and Darnell Wright, both positions. And I say may. I think Darnell Wright is going to get an extension, right? Let me correct myself on that one before the comments go crazy. And those are two premium positions that you have to pay for. And those are guys that have been in your building that were drafted by Ryan Poles and that have, at that point would have earned this extension, right? So this is a different situation than where the Bears have been with any past quarterbacks, even Jay Cutler, right? Mitch didn't get it. Jay Cutler got a contract here, but, we know how that went with Jay Cutler, right? Caleb is about to get paid. And if the Bears have another successful season like they had this year and Caleb Williams steps up, let's say he gets that completion percentage from 58% up to 65, 66%, which I think it would be an excellent place for him to be in. 70% is still a little bit of a difficulty, but if Caleb improves on the overthrows and underthrows, the wide receiver also improve on drops, which is something that Ben Johnson has talked so much about already this offseason and a little bit that we've heard him about. If those two things improve, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility of seeing a 65-plus completion percentage for Caleb Williams. Maybe even do get close to that 70% that Ben Johnson tasked them with doing, which would be a good thing. But that traffic light analogy, I love that one. It went from red as a rookie to yellow, and they're hoping that we get the green light here in year 3. So it means a lot. Like, the step that Caleb Williams makes in year 3 as a franchise quarterback is going to be so important, as not only to the Bears continue to make the forward progress that we're trying to, build off of last year, which I struggle to use that because I know Ben Johnson doesn't like hearing build off of, but to progress the team and take another step forward as a team, but also the refinement of, you have your weapons now, right? Like the weapons, and the Bears may add another wide receiver later on in this draft, but like, you now have 2 years going into year 3 with Rome Odunze. You now have a year under your belt with Luther Burden going into year 2 with him and Colston Loveland, right? You have that. You're going to have year 2 of an improved offensive line, which provides you more safety. Commandant guy, DeAndre Swift, the year 2 of those guys as a tandem in the running back duo. So, you're hoping that you're starting to see the benefit. Like, part of the benefit of keeping your pieces together is that they learn secondhand better, and they understand how to play off each other better, where they like just playing together better as an overall team. And that's what you're hoping is going to happen here. So Ryan Poles basically already saying what we already knew. Like me, Bobby, Dub, we've talked about this a lot. Like, Caleb Williams is going to get that extension after year 3. And that's just pretty much what you see standard, barring anything crazy happening or a huge regression from Caleb Williams. He's going to get that extension at the end of year 3. The size, the years, all that type of stuff. I guess we'll see what the success that the Bears have this season. But let me know what you guys think down below. Hearing this comment from Ryan Poles in regards to already preparing for the contract extension and the terminology that he used as well, basically still putting it a little bit on Caleb, saying, listen, we hope that we see enough from him in year 3, because, you still want to dangle that carrot a little bit in front of him, right? You don't want to give everybody the keys right away. You still want to dangle that carrot a little bit, but, just giving him that runway of saying, hey, we believe in you. We think you're the guy. Continue to prove you're the guy, and we're going to take care of you. And I think the Bears have come a long way from the whole talk of Caleb Williams not wanting to be a Chicago Bear and people kind of focusing on that and all that type of stuff. Like, Caleb Williams is a Bear, and he likes being here as a Chicago Bear. And, he even said, after the conversation, that was all done. Now, let's get this locked in. Let's lock in this contract. Let's have a really good season this year, and then we can continue building going forward. And then you have your pieces in Darnell Wright and Caleb Williams locked in, which then that may be where that big move, that splash move that a lot of people wanted to see this offseason, that may be where that splash move comes. But let me know what you guys think on that part down below. With that said, the Bears have also met now with a new center prospect, right? We know that the draft is leading. We're leading into the NFL draft. We're still, waiting. And Drew Dahlman, the exit there, getting Garrett Bradbury as a fill-in for right now, but still trying to, take advantage of getting your center of the future in this year's draft, right? And NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reported that Miami center James Brockheimer is meeting with the Chicago Bears this week, which is another further step in the Chicago Bears and their clear focus on looking at the center in this draft. I know everybody's talking about edge, everybody's talking about defensive tackle, but I really do think you're probably going to see, and we'll get into this more with the next one, you're probably going to see the Bears' first 3 picks in the draft, meaning the first round pick and the 2 picks in round 2 be a combination of safety, a defensive line position, and center. I just think that that's kind of what you're going to see with Sam Hecht as well, but I think the Bears are kind of showing their hand in that area that they're going to look for that. But they are now taking a top 30 visit with James Brockheimer, again, the center out of Miami. This gets added to other centers that they've met with in Yeager Burton. We already know they went to see Sam Hecht as well. They looked at some other guys as well with pro days and stuff like that are also centers. But the Bears center list is starting to grow. You're starting to see kind of where they're headed mentally with that center position. And so this is just still where the Bears are trying to provide some insight in it, right? They're looking at it. They're going to sit down and meet with the guy, get a feel for his personality, his character, stuff like that, which is stuff that has mattered for Ryan Poles over his course here of running the Chicago Bears, and that's been a big part of it. And so you're trying to find that center of the future. Garrett Bradbury is going to, like Ben Johnson talked about it. He feels that he's going to be good for the Chicago Bears. He's a guy that still doesn't really allow sacks. He doesn't have penalties for real, those type of things. But if ideally you want to find your center of the future, and that's just going to add to Ozzie Trapillo, Darnell Wright, right? Theo Benedict, who's another young guy who's going to probably be here for a little bit a while, right? Luke Newman, who we also drafted. Like, you're just trying to continue. You added veterans in Joe Thuney and why am I throwing a blank for the Jonah Jackson? You added veterans in that. You added a veteran Drew Dalman last year, but he's gone now. But now that you have those veterans under contract, you want to start getting ready for a new young crop to replace them if and when needed, right? And also you just want depth on your offensive line too. So, this is just Ryan Poles, and I think the Bears just taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of putting themselves in a spot to where they have a succession. And that's what the really great teams do, is that you have a succession to it. Yeah, there's always going to be years where you have to fill and make a big free agent signing. There's going to be years where you have to fill a starting position in the draft. There's going to be years where you got to do both. A lot of years you're going to have to do a combination of both those things. But if you can have guys that you can work with, that Dan Rouchar can start developing and working with now, that way by time a Jonah Jackson retires or time that Joe Thuney, his contract is up, you hopefully have young guys where you don't have to re-sign large contracts but are ready and that you believe in, have chemistry with your quarterback, and that know and understand your system so you're able to move seamlessly, right, if and when needed. And that's what, this is to a degree. And I think with the Bears and overall in their top 30 visits, there's been a lot of offensive linemen. I want to start seeing them look at combo offensive linemen personally, but, for depth purposes. But there's still a lot of offensive linemen in those top 30 visits and even in their pro day visits as well. And so I think that just shows that there is a level of thinking in this that we have to prepare for what's coming in the future. We cannot sit back and wait and get caught with our pants down. If that ends up being what happens, we can't get caught. And they got caught with their pants down a little bit in this situation when it came down to Drew Dalman. But that's not anything that I think was really in their control. I mean, to be 100% honest with you, they got notified when they got notified. I think that's just the reality of it. They got notified when they did, and they pivoted pretty there early. And Ben Johnson talked about it. They identified, pretty early on Garrett Bradbury and the chance of adding him to this team. They identified that early. And so that's not something that we're always used to with the Chicago Bears, is future planning. And that's been one of Ryan Poles' best attributes since being the GM of the Chicago Bears. He always keeps a mind on the present, but also looks out for the future as well. And that's the sign, I think, of a really good GM, is when they're able to do both those things. Now, this last year was the first year we were actually able to be a winning team. So one could say, have we done it enough, right? But that's the sign of the makings of a really good GM, one that sets you up not only for the now, but also sets you up for the future. And as long as you can continue to do that, that puts you in a position where, yeah, you're not caught with your pants down as often, and you are able to pivot pretty quickly. And flexibility has been something that we know that Ryan Poles has talked about literally since he came into the team. His flexibility has been a huge thing, and now we see that same thing echoed with Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson. They want flexibility all throughout their roster, and they're building that in. You don't have flexibility by accident. It's just not a reality. You have to build that in. You have to plan for that. And so, the Bears here meeting with another center, even though they got Garrett Bradbury, who they're fully prepared to be their starting center, it makes sense to start looking at your future starting center. And we'll see if the Bears can execute that in the draft and who they end up walking away with. But right now, it feels like Poles is doing a lot of scouting for centers that are going to be in different spots in the draft. That way, depending on, again, what we know that Ryan Poles' mentality is in the draft, best player available. And we'll see how that works out. But with that said, I want to get into this ESPN article, right? ESPN analytics team released their annual draft day predictor, which comes out ahead of the draft, which is on April 23rd. We are 21 days, exactly 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. Y'all, can y'all feel that? Like, I can't wait. I think this is going to be an exciting draft. And they have the two most likely picks for the Chicago Bears, and they marked defensive tackle Peter Woods and safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren as being the most likely players drafted by the Chicago Bears at pick number 25. And we've talked about the combination of these guys before, right? Peter Woods out of Clemson, defensive tackle, 6'3", 315 pounds. the agility drill and the speed that he has at being 315 pounds is actually fucking ridiculous. And excuse my French, it's actually effing ridiculous. Now, he is a guy that had only 5 sacks in the totality of his 3 years at Clemson, which I know some Bears fans are going to look at and be like, damn, is that real? But when you look at his pressure rate, when you look at his, the pressure that he puts on the quarterback, his ability to get past offensive linemen, and what he does in the run game. Because as much as we talk about the pass rush and the ability to get to the quarterback, we got to keep in mind the Bears are also one of the worst run defensive teams in the league. This guy also forced 2 fumbles as well, had 1 passes deflected over his 3 years at Clemson. And this is a guy that it makes a lot of sense if he's on the board for the Bears to draft. We know that we need defensive tackles. Grady Jarrett wasn't really much. We brought in some other defense, some multiple defensive tackles. We brought in Gallimore as well. Contavious Street, who can play edge and tackle. So we have some flexibility there, which is really good. Again, that word flexibility. But if you're able to get the long-term defensive tackle mate for Javon Dexter, I like that. And I think the combination of Javon Dexter and Peter Woods would provide guys that have strengths in similar areas, but also cover up for each other's weaknesses, which on the defensive line, that's really what you want to be able to get into. So, Peter Woods makes a lot of sense for the Bears. He's a guy that I believe was on, if I'm not mistaken, he was on Steve-O's mock, I believe is what it is. Somebody fact check me on that one, but I believe he was on Steve-O's mock draft. But Peter Woods is a guy that's one of the guys most commonly mocked to the Chicago Bears. They also predicted Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Now, I've talked a lot about this guy. You've probably seen him on a lot of thumbnails here on this channel because I do think the Bears are probably going to go safety in the first round. And I get it. Every time I say that on every episode, there's a number of people that, oh, my God, we got to go defensive line with the first 3 picks. We're going to go this. We're going to go that. It's a possibility. And I think now you're starting to see more and more. And even Ryan Poles' his own words of basically saying, like, hey, I don't believe in being locked into a certain position at a certain round. I believe you look at the board and what is best available, and we'll see what's going to happen there. But Emmanuel McNeil-Warren would be a really good mate for Kobe Bryant in that safety room, 6'2", 202 pounds. He had 6 passes deflected last year. He had 2 interceptions to go along with that, 3 forced fumbles. This guy just hits hard. He's smart. And the flexibility, again, that word, inside the box, outside the box. That's exactly how we use Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Warren. Now you're not Kevin Warren. That's crazy if Kevin Warren got out there and was playing safety. And Kevin Byard. And so you have guys, you can do that with younger guys that are still hard hitting and that type of thing. And that's what the Chicago Bears are really looking to do, is replicate the style that they are able to do with Brisker and Byard, but go younger, not as high of contracts that's going to be there. And that's what the Bears are hoping that they're going to be able to accomplish in this draft, wherever they draft the safety at. But best believe, safety is on the menu for the Chicago Bears in the 2026 draft because we don't have another starting safety as things stand right now. No. Before Darius calls in and talks about moving Tyreek Stevenson or Jesus or anybody else to the safety position, that's not what the Bears are doing here. They're going to draft a safety. That's going to be their starting safety. They're going to continue to try to build this thing on out. And that's really what it becomes about. So, for what it's worth, not to say that ESPN and their mocks or any other outlets, when they predict things like that, they're 100% or just should be taken as fact. Because no, they're trying to look at what makes sense based off the board, what they're hearing, and both those players would make sense absolutely. But McNeil-Warren, big, strong, he hits hard, which you really like at that one. He makes people have to think about crossing the middle of the field. And that's what you really want to be there. He's athletic. He can make plays in coverage, make plays in one-on-one. As that, he forces fumbles that we may have not seen somebody that's able to do that since Charles Tillman in the way that he's going to be able to do it. So it's a really good spot to put him in to start opposite side of Kobe Bryant, absolutely, when it comes down to that one. And I absolutely love it. And I told you guys about Woods. I love Peter Woods. I have for a while now, and we'll just see how that shakes on out. But the last topic of the day before we get out of here is this one came out yesterday from Patrick Finney of the Sun-Times. It said that the Bears are still trying to persuade the NFL to let them get compensatory picks for losing Ian Cunningham. Even so much so to say that McCaskey is also getting involved in this, as well as George McCaskey getting involved in this as well, to try to get something to go and to see if they can get the NFL to move on the compensatory picks. Now, the NFL's already released its official compensatory pick, so the chances of it happening are slim. But I do love that the Chicago Bears aren't just taking this and just going quietly into the night about it and just saying, all right, it's cool. It is what it is, because the impact of the loss of Ian Cunningham is legitimate. And so the fact that the Bears are even still pushing back on it and trying to still get that, I think that makes a lot of sense for the Bears, because you can get a third-round compensatory pick in this draft and next year's draft third round picks. That's not anything, even though it's going to be at the end of the third round, that's still not anything shabby to look at for the Bears, especially for a Bears team that's 2 picks in the second round. And I think with the Bears being so aggressive about still trying to pursue these compensatory picks, there's something that Ryan Poles wants in that. And I think it just makes it even more easy to do the flexibility thing that Ryan Poles is trying to do if he's able to get those compensatory picks. So will the Bears be lucky enough to get it? We'll see. But I do love hearing that my team is still trying to get that and still pushing that, even so much so that ownership is getting involved with the NFL and trying to say, hey, look at this situation for what it is, right? And I think also it's get made a little bit easier the fact that, Matt Ryan with the Falcons actually said, listen, this Ian Cunningham is going to be making the decisions this offseason, and that's what it's about. It's about the head decision maker. It's Ian Cunningham's decisions. Let's go ahead and get those compensatory picks. But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. Clearly the Bears are building something, and we all know that, and we've all felt that, right? But I got to ask you guys some questions. Do you think Caleb Williams gets extended in year 3? What do you think that extension looks like for Caleb Williams? I want to see your predictions down in the comment section. We'll see if we have some fun with that one. Also, what position do you think the Bears should take at number 25? What player do you think the Bears are going to take at number 25 as well? And let me know how you guys feel about how the Bears are preparing for this draft with looking at the center position as well. But make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. You guys can follow us at Shy Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. I love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.